Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast, as always. And we are running into a big Wednesday night slate here. Nate, we're going to be taking a look at the Suns and the Cavs, two teams in opposite directions right now. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page, as we've got a couple other videos up for you today on this big slate. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, we got a full slate here before Thanksgiving. We got Lakers on a back-to-back, plus 1.5 at Indy. We got the Nets -1 at Celtics. We'll break that down in a separate video. Pistons plus 14 at the Bucks. Heat -2 at the streaking Wolves. We got the Wizards -3 at the Pelicans. Bulls -8 at Rockets. Raptors +4 at Grizz. Jazz -12 at Thunder. We got the Hawks -4 at the Spurs, and we break that one down as well. Then the Sixers are +10 at Warriors, and the Blazers 2.5 at the Kings. The game we are breaking down here, though, is the Suns right now -6.5 at DraftKings or 7 at FanDuel at Cleveland, which has lost 4 straight. The total is at 209. Cleveland has been a very low-scoring team this year. If you haven't watched the NBA since last season, we're going to blow your mind, because the Cavs are actually putting up some good numbers on both ends of the floor in terms of efficiency, or they were until the smoke and mirrors started to sort of evaporate, or rather they just lost some key guys. Yeah. They will be going into this game without Colin Sexton. In fact, the rest of the season without him. They're without Evan Mobley for about a month. And Darius Garland is on the wrong side of questionable with a neck issue. Even C.D. Osman is dealing with a back problem. He's listed as probable, but I mean, he's not necessarily, back problems in basketball don't mix too well. So in their last 4, the Cavs have gone, they've failed to cover in 3 of those. Their one cover has come by a narrow margin of 0.5 points. And 3 of those 4 games have been at home. So not a lot of confidence here if you're going to be the one to back the Cavs, despite the fact that they have covered in 5 of 8 home games thus far this season. In their last 4, they have a -10 net rating. They've lost by an average of 9 points per game, 27th in offensive rating. And really, over the last 6, they've been struggling and only scoring under 97 points per game. And so enter the hottest team in basketball, the Suns, who have won 12 in a row, who have covered in 8 of those games, who have the number 1 net rating, number 2 defensive rating, and are second in points per game during that span, allowing just 102 points per game on the other end. I don't really see Cleveland getting over 100 points in this matchup. So I think that would be the starting point when we see that team total released, to just say Cavs under. I think we could get right around the spread here, especially if it creeps up to 7 or 8. I would be a little bit concerned about it and look to tease it down with so many other games on the slate, or just tease it within this game and get the total up to about 213. Because the Cavs, as much as they've struggled on offense, they have been still great defensively somehow, some way. And they're actually the number 1 rebounding team, despite their 4-game losing streak, defensive rebound percentage. And that's fine with the Suns. They don't crash. They're 26th in offensive rebounds, but it does mean we should have a slow-paced, low-scoring game probably that the Suns are almost certainly going to pull out and continue their streak.
Yeah, I would feel pretty good about that. It is a lot about who's not playing for the Cavs. It's really disappointing. I mean, if they did have Sexton, if we were guaranteed to have Garland and Mobley was in there, and even Chetty Osman, it would feel like 6.5 points right now would be doable for a team like this, even against the Suns, just because of the style that they play and the way that they keep things close. It was a little bit concerning that the way that they were beating the Nets in that last game was with offense, and how much they were scoring. I believe they had 60 points at the half, and it was like, well, this is not sustainable for this team. But the Nets can do that, and thus, the Nets won 117, 112. That's not how they do things, and that's not how they win. Even covering the 6.5 points right now isn't terrifying if you wanted to consider them, but it's not something that, right now it's two teams that are streaking, like we said, in the wrong way. And you'd really have to feel like this was going to be a complete anomaly letdown for the Suns, who have had a chance to at least rest a bit since their last game, after they had that back-to-back where they did beat the Spurs by 5, failing to cover, but still feel really good, about even a worse team in the Cavs right now with who's playing for them, like we said. So, number one, first and foremost, under 101.5 for Cleveland, and this one feels really good, just based on their inability to score right now. And it's not like the Suns are unable to score, but it's still a little bit, it's Cleveland has done what they've done against good competition. Like we said, even the Nets in that game before they lost, the 2 games ago when they lost, since they had the 2 games right in a row there with the Nets, the Cavs did hold them to 99 points in that one, and it feels like that they've got a couple other offenses that you can look at this season and go, well, yeah, the Cavs may not have pulled out certain victories, but there is a reason that they're covering so well right now, and it's because of that pace of play that they play at. But the Suns don't play at a fast pace. There's nothing to slow down there. The Suns are still scoring, with efficiency numbers, as we said, on both sides of the ball, and it's actually a really mixed bag for the Suns on offense, which is why, you continue to see them scoring at the pace that they're scoring, is because of the different, there's, I believe, 7 players in double digits right now that in terms of season averages for the Suns. So it's coming from all over the floor. The reason that they have the number one half court offense in the league is because of the fact that every single person on their team can score, and sans DeAndre Ayton, everybody's pulling from 3 out there for the Suns as well. So too many threats for them. If they do go cold and they find themselves coming up against a Cavs D that still is pretty formidable, even with their injuries, you can still bank on the Suns defense, which, is in the top 5 as well, especially in their last 13 that they've won in a row.
Yeah, and you can bank on Chris Paul too. If this game winds up being closer than expected, that to me just means more buckets for Chris Paul in the half court. I'm looking at some of his props for 15.5 points or 24.5 points and assists, because he's averaged a solid 19.5 and 13 assists per game in 2 meetings against these Cavs since joining the Suns. Granted, that was last season, but I mean, if we're seeing the Cavs start to regress due to, in part, to these injuries, they only went 8-22 against the spread against the West last season. And so that's a little bit more of what we're seeing rather than their impressive record against the spread this year. And you mentioned the Suns generally being hot in terms of 3-point shooting. They're 37% during their streak, and they're holding opponents to 31% in a make or miss league. That's obviously going to play a big factor. So unless we see fluky shooting really from both sides here, this should be about a 10-point win for the Suns, if not more.
Yep, absolutely. And the last thing I would say there in terms of what we're looking at with player props right now, we do have a few up for the Suns, and I'm actually just looking at player rebounds right now. Someone I do think could have a good game, especially since we mentioned the amount of wing players that are being missed in Cedi Osman and Evan Mobley for the Cavs. You consider a guy like Mikal Bridges. I don't know why I struggle with his name. I wanted to call him Michael, which is just insane. But Mikal Bridges there has been putting up good numbers in his last 14 as well, and is averaging about 6 boards. So if you want 3.5 rebounds for him in that one, it's only minus 130 on your money, but it's something that feels good. And like there's a few players on the wing there for the Suns that should be in line for a pretty good game. So that is all the time that we have for today. We will be enjoying this big Wednesday night slate with you guys before we all stuff our faces on Thursday and watch a bunch of football. And until we see you next, happy betting.